Picture this. It really happened. I'm not kidding. You're a newly ordained priest. You've been ordained a week, and you find yourself for 1 week only as the acting pastor of your home parish. Monday morning, you have your first weekday mass. You're very proud of yourself. You said the right words, did the right things. You didn't knock anything over. You're looking forward to going back to the rectory. There's going to be a newspaper. There's going to be coffee. There'll be Captain Crunch cereal for breakfast. And you walk into the rectory, and there's a huddle of the lay staff in the hallway, and they all seem to be very anxious and concerned. Someone looks up and sees you and says, "Here comes Father now. He'll know what to do." What would you do in that situation? Stay with me. I've got a story to tell. Hi, I'm Jesuit Father Robert McTeigue, your host here every day, The Catholic Current, coming to you from the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. Let's take a closer look. I'm glad you're here. For a few weeks now, I've been recording little pieces on grief-stricken men, brokenhearted men, Christ healing men. I've got to talk about grief-stricken, brokenhearted priests. But let's go back to that story that I began with. I really was ordained just a week. All the priests in the diocese were away on retreat. The pastor asked me to cover for a week. And then there we are in the rectory. Here comes Father now. He'll know what to do. And I felt the weight of the world fall on my shoulders. And the weak part of me just wanted to spin on my heels and say, is this going to be my life? And just walk out the door, get into the car, point it west, and just keep on going. But then something inside me said, no, this is what I was ordained for. God will give me the grace to live the life He called me to. And I went forward and dealt with the problem. And over the years, 28 years of priesthood, whenever I reminded myself, better said, uh, God will provide the grace for the vocation that He gave me, I was able to manage. And when I forgot that or found it difficult to believe, things did not go well. And I mention this not only because I've been talking about masculine grief and heartache for a few weeks, but I've been having a lot of conversations recently with priests whom I know, some very well, some just contact me through social media. They're having a hard time. They're overworked, overwhelmed. They say that they're underappreciated. They feel lost. They don't feel well guided. It seems that they should have zeal for everyone's soul, but no one teaches them how to care for their own soul. They spend a lot of time doing HR work with parish employees. They're managing buildings and cemeteries and so on. And there's not a lot of time for prayer or visiting the sick or working on sermons. And I think that we just expect priests to be not human, but to be functionaries, kind of ATMs at the sacramental drive-through. You just go through, you get your token of grace, and then you go along till next time. And I think sadly, priests, the humanity of priests is often overlooked, or forgotten, and certainly neglected. So I'm here to say, priests have hearts, and priests can feel pain in their souls. Let me give you some examples as to why priests feel pain in their souls. I'm going to give you 10 examples. Most of them I've seen myself. A couple of them, uh, people I know whom I trust told me they witnessed this with their own eyes. Imagine you're a priest and someone walks up to you and says, Father, my favorite part of the Mass is the hug part. Right in the feels. Or after Mass, someone comes up to you and says, Hey, Father, why didn't we do the cup thing today? I really like the cup thing. Or you're getting ready for a big Mass and the sacristan comes in and says, Hey, Father, we're running low on hosts. Should I put more in the tabernacle for you to give out at Mass later? Imagine as a priest getting ready for a wedding, and someone says, Father, the most important part of the wedding Mass is the unity candle. Or imagine meeting with a parish staff and someone says, Why don't we vote on the music that we like for Mass? Or your DRE or the principal of your parish school says, Hey, Father, what can we do to make the Mass more fun for kids? Another way to break Father's heart is to show up for Mass wearing faded gym shorts, dirty sneakers, and a t shirt celebrating SpongeBob SquarePants. I like SpongeBob too. He's a problem solver, doesn't have a place at Mass. Most reliable way to break a priest's heart is to just receive Holy Communion by putting one hand out and looking bored as if Father were giving you a complimentary poker chip at Atlantic City and you really want it to be somewhere else. To break his heart even further, receive the host and just wander off absentmindedly with the host in your hand as if you had no idea what you were doing. And then, just as Father's about to catch up with you, you pop the host in your mouth as if he'd given you a cough drop. And another way is to look on with puzzlement and wonder why Father is horrified upon doing a search after every Mass on Sundays, where he looks for discarded hosts and hymnals and prayer books and under the pews. These are great ways to make the morale of priests plummet. I have friends who are talking about getting laicized. They say, I just can't do this anymore. Well, what do we do about that? Well, I'll tell you what not to do. Let's not embrace denial. See, you can't fix what you won't face. And the way we've been asking priests to live doesn't work. How do we know it doesn't work? The priests who leave, the priests who get caught up in addictions, priests who commit suicide, the priests who commit crimes. And it's not like young men are banging down the doors to say, sign me up for that. We have to admit that offering at most on a Sunday business casual light for Mass hasn't been helping the faithful and hasn't been helping Father either. Something is very, very broken. We ask priests to live as administrators. We ask them to function as social workers. We don't give them the opportunity to live as men of prayer and spirit. And then we wonder why morale is poor. Yes, there are exceptions. And you know what about those exceptions? They're exceptional. They're not the norm. They're not standard. Ask the rector of a seminary, ask a diocesan vocation director, you being flooded with applications? Are you being presented with men who say, gosh, I just can't wait to join that long line of happy and effective men? Probably not. We can suggest that priests get spiritual directors and confessors, and I do recommend that, but you can't just go to spiritual directors are up or get a can of instant good confessor. Those are hard to find. Good spiritual directors, the good ones, are always already too busy. We can, though, start with an examination of conscience. Have we done right by our priests in their formation, in their living situation, in their ministry? Have we prayed for them? Have we fostered good relationships between bishops and priests? The ideal is a relationship between father and son. Sometimes it becomes adversarial. There's a whole spectrum in between. My point is this: I don't have a ready solution. How to solve the problem of priesthood with this one weird trick. I'm not capable of that. But we've got to start by admitting that we have a problem. We're breaking our priests by breaking their heart. And young men see that and they don't want to participate in that. It's really hard to live life without the sacraments. You can't have sacraments without priests. So let's at least undertake an examination of conscience. If you're a priest, talk about the fellowship you may or may not have offered to your brother priest. If you're a pastor, are you cultivating the priests who live with you? If you're a bishop, have you worked at being a true spiritual father to your priests? And if you're a member of the congregation, at a minimum, do you intercede for your priests? God will sustain the men whom he has called on the condition that they turn to him for grace and for healing. Let's encourage these struggling men with a high calling to turn to Christ, the healer, and then please God, turn to a church that says, you know what? We're not an army that shoots its wounded. And the church will have to admit we can no longer live as if our bench is very deep, because it isn't. We're in a crisis, and we have to admit it. That's the first step. Meanwhile, think on these things today, take them to prayer, and talk about it with those you love. Go in peace, and please do pray for me, for I am a sinner. Hey, we need your support. Please click on the link on the screen or in the description below so that the Station of the Cross can continue to provide you with great Catholic programming like this. Thanks for watching today. I release new videos on Mondays and Wednesdays. Check out the archives for more videos. You can listen to my podcast at stationofthecross.com, and you can find my written work at heraldofthegospel.org. See you next time.